Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Mathis. Let me welcome you today to our webinar. Let me thank you again for taking the time, first off, to reading the report on secrets to creating and maintaining a state certification program, and secondly, for taking the time to being willing to be part of the webinar itself. This is a webinar will take approximately 30 minutes is what I have. I'm recording it. I will be posting it on both on LinkedIn and on Facebook, so you'll have access to it if you'd like. Also, one of the things that I'll be talking about, I'll go through some of the main components of this, setting up the webinar and some of the things that I think are going to be benefits to both state organizations. And even if you're not a state organization, I think there's some benefits to having a certification program, even as a organization that has a PMO, especially when you're talking about getting your people certified for the PMP, for the Agile, and those type of certifications. All right, for those of you who have not heard of us, we're based out of Springfield, Missouri. We're about 50 miles north of Branson, Missouri. We have been in business since 1993. We have actually worked with two main organizations in working with certification programs. And so this is the roots of what we have done in actually running and administering certification programs. One is the state of Missouri, the other is the state of Kansas. We are a registered education provider, which gives us the ability to create programs as a registered education provider and provide PDUs, which are CEUs, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. State of Missouri actually brought us on many years ago to administer their internal certification program for their project managers. State of Missouri has a certification program for their project managers, and at the time it was very, very strong. And so their project managers would have to go through several weeks of training. They would take a certification test, and then they would have to maintain that test. We won the contract. We came in and developed the test. We would bring in the curriculum, and we would administer the test. We would also train them, and we'd provide training throughout the year, not only for the curriculum for the test, but also for other types of curriculum for project management. And the purpose behind that was so that you would lay a foundation of project management curriculum and core competency so that the state workers would be able to run the projects more efficiently and effectively and be more cost effective. And that created a multiple year relationship with the state of Missouri. That program has kind of gone by the wayside over the years as administrations have changed. We still go in and do project management training, PMP training, Agile training for the state of Missouri. But that gave us the roots with the state of Missouri. State of Kansas came along and picked it up, doing the same thing, and we still do that even today with the state of Kansas. And so we have done this multiple years with the state of Kansas. So I think we're in our 12th year with the state of Kansas now. But we write the test, we administer the test, and of course we provide 30 to 40 seminars throughout the year with the state of Kansas in training their project managers and keeping their project managers trained. And so each year we will be throughout the state of Kansas providing project management training in those areas. Now, like I said, the Mathis Group is a registered education provider with PMI. If you're not familiar with that, there's 1,000 of us or 1,100 of us in the world. So that allows us to create a curriculum. It allows us the opportunity to be able to give PDUs, which are very similar to CEUs. So if you're a project manager registered with PMI with a credential, that means you have to have so many continuing education or professional development units, which are very similar, each year. And so that allows you to be able to pick those up. Now, the Project Management Institute, if this is new to you, the Project Management Institute is the premier project management organization in the world, not just in the United States, but in the world. And so you can find them at pmi.org. And so that will allow you to look up that organization. So when we talk about the PMP and the Agile Certified Professional, and we talk about certifications international, these are international certifications. So if you've ever looked on a job, looking for a job, and they've asked for a PMP and some of these certifications, that's normally through PMI. Now, there's other organizations, but normally they're looked at as being being other organizations outside of PMI. They're not normally looked at here, at least here in our country, they're not normally looked at as being as stellar as PMI. Now, some organizations might differ, obviously, but normally PMI is looked at as the Cadillac. Our trainers are all skilled professionals. They're experts in training. They're also experts in project management, and they are credentialed with PMP or Agile or some of the credentials or all of the credentials. Staff are educated. They're motivated in the training. So when we bring people in to do training, these folks understand project management, and they have a variety of skills, whether it's working with project management and from the area of software, whether they're working at it from the area of construction, or whether they're working at it from the space shuttle. The point is they're going to come in with project management skills and abilities to be able to do that. Oh, but I messed this up here. Sorry about that. Is that where we need to be? Okay, sorry. That's the negative of being able to be live, is that when we mess something up, everybody sees it. Okay, so let me walk you through a process of what we're talking about with the certification program and kind of give you the overview of what we're putting together here. Now, if you look at a certification, the program as putting together your project, and then what you're going to be doing after you put it together is you're going to then be operating that project, operating that project as a program that will help you to be able to do this. Okay, so here's your process of doing this. So let me get my glasses on so I can see my slides here with you. So you'll notice here, you're determining the goals of the program. So what are your goals? Most of the time, the goals of a certification program is going to be to create a series of base core competencies that you want your project managers to have for your organization, whatever that is, whether you're a state, feds, whether you're a company, you have certain type of core competencies you want them to be able to have to be able to calculate what the durations are, to be able to know what the estimates are, to be able to coach your people, to be able to run the project, to be able to negotiate, to be able to do all these different pieces of project management, whatever you think are those core competencies. So what are the goals of it? So whatever those goals are going to be, that needs to be established, and that's going to be management. That's going to be management. That's going to be program managers. Whatever your structure is, you're going to have to set that up. Then set the duration of the program. Now, the program we're talking about here is you've got your upper program talking about the whole totality of what the certification program would be. But here, what's the actual program, the course program? So in other words, what are we talking about? Are you going to train them for a day? That's probably not going to be enough to make a lot of difference if you're talking about changing the behavior of your people. Or are you going to train them for a week to 3 weeks to 6 weeks? Now, obviously, you can get this sucker so long that it's going to be too much. So most of the time, when you're talking about creating some kind of certification program, you're looking at somewhere between 1 to 4 weeks. And so you decide what's going to be worth. 1 week might not be enough. 4 weeks might be too much for you because of the expense and the time off of your people. So what you're looking at, let's say, like for an example, state of Missouri, it was 4 weeks. We dropped it back to 3. The state of Kansas, we have it for 3 weeks. And so it's called a 90-hour training. And so they go on and off for a week, for 6 weeks. And so they have 3 weeks of training. So they're on a week, off a week, on a week, off a week kind of thing. So that might be too much for you, might not be enough. Okay, so set the duration of the program. Next, then you're looking at the issue of procurement. So when you're looking at the procurement of this, how much are you willing to spend to be able to maintain this program? Because you're going to probably hire a vendor. Now, if you're going to do it internally, and that means how are you going to come up with your material? And so the material becomes your big expense because you're purchasing materials and books, and then you're trying to keep this stuff updated. So creating your statement of work, creating an RFP for your vendor, if you're going to hire a vendor, and then hiring the vendor. So now, we're a contractor. We don't work for the state of Missouri, so we're under contract, but we come in and we do our 3 weeks and we administer the tests. We do the whole deal. We keep it all updated. We keep it registered. Everything we do is registered with PMI. So that's a huge deal. So that means that not only do we, is what they're doing in class registered with PMI, but that means every time we come over and do training, anybody who's been certified through the states or through any company that we've worked with, they then turn around and attend our training. They know that every course is automatically registered with PMI. So anybody who's attending our class is getting PDUs automatically. That makes no sense to me for some people to go to a certification class to pick up PDUs, and then some people go to something that's not certified. That's hocus pocus by a vendor. So anything that anybody's going to attend to any of our project management classes, they're automatically certified. So if you're sitting here and you've got a credential credential, you're getting PDUs for it. We're going to give you a certificate. So that makes no sense to me. So they're going to get PDUs. So that's going to make a difference on what kind of vendor you get, because remember, a registered education provider, there's only 1,100 in the world. So that's going to make a little bit of a difference. Then notice over here when you're looking at setting dates. Okay, so when is the best time for you guys to have your certification class? You've got heavy times and you've got slow times. And so what you're trying to do is work with that vendor, if you're going to use a vendor, and set up the times for the training for that group. Now, the positive thing of you using a vendor is going to be that they're going to bring in some outside information and best practices that's going to help your people. They're going to expose them to some things that's outside of your company. A lot of times people think, well, I don't want anybody but construction. Well, construction's fine. Not anything wrong with construction. Obviously, you've got some processes that's going to help you. But even in construction, you've got a breadth of material and information that can be brought in that's beyond what your people know, that might actually create additional best practices that would be very beneficial for them. So the thing is that there's always additional information and material that people need to know that's beyond what's being used at any organization right now. And that's what you're really wanting to do, is keep your people with best practices and new ideas as much as possible. Then select the participants. How are you going to decide what participants are going to attend this particular certification class? Is everybody go, or is it somebody who is going to, that you handpick, is going to be the next project manager group? Then next, conduct your certification class. So let's say it's 3 weeks long. So you conduct your certification class. So they go through. So as they go through, how is it structured? Now, in our case, let me just kind of give you the way we structure it. We normally do something like an 8 to 4. And of course, then what happens is we do an 8 to 4 for 5 days in a row. And at the end of each week, we do a practice test. That practice test does not have the real test questions on it, but it does have the topics that we have talked about that week. It does have a vocab test. Each week we give a vocab test of terminology that we're teaching everybody from that week. So that terminology is all fitting in there that's going to feeding up to the actual certification test. So we do have that. And we do that practice test because we're feeding them information in thirds for the 3-week test. Then on week 3, just to kind of piece this part in there, on week 3, we go from Monday through Wednesday with the actual class just like normal. On Thursday, what we do is Thursday afternoon, I stop and I do a refresh with them. And so I basically study with them to kind of get them ready, because on Friday, the last day of the class, they're doing nothing but coming in Friday morning and they're taking a 2-hour certification test. And so in other words, we start at 8. So from 8 to 10, they're taking a 2-hour multiple choice certification test. And then when they leave, they're leaving and turning their test in. So then we grade their tests and we notify them over the weekend whether or not they pass that test. And so we notify them, we notify the company what they made on their test. And so most companies will have a score of 75 or 70, let's say a 70 to pass the test. They do not get a copy of the test because it's a certification test. All they know is that they made a 72. So passing's good enough with these folks. The training is normally going to not only be intensive and not only it's not memorization, it's actual application. So it's a teach test kind of thing in the class. I'm sorry, it's a teach application kind of stuff in the class. Because what happens is, and what you're wanting to do is you're wanting them to be able to learn something. Okay, here's how you do a work breakdown structure, but then here's how we're going to do it. So here's an activity and you're going to create a work breakdown structure. So even if you don't use us, I don't care, but even if you don't use us and you're using internal people, you want this thing to be high power, and you want this to be an exciting kind of time, because you want your people to be supercharged about this training. And what you'll notice is that your people will actually generate enthusiasm for the next set of training, to where people will want to be part of this training. And then the certification test. You're not trying to kill everybody with this test, but you're not wanting to make it so brain dead silly and stupid that anybody can walk in off the street and pass it. And then create some kind of fancy certificate for everybody. And I mean, I'm talking about worthy of a frame. And in many companies will actually put it in a frame. And so what happens is all these folks are called to the director's office, or they're called to the plant manager's office, or whatever. Make it special. have them come by, they get the certificate, they have lunch with the director, or they shake hands with the director, take a picture of them or whatever, have a sign or have a board someplace of certified project managers for your company and have their picture up there. I mean, it costs you almost nothing to have a picture up there. Have a picture of them shaking hands with you. These are certified project managers, and you can create your own little credential. You know, some will create a little credential PMM or CFPMM or whatever you want to call it. Create your own little credential for that, and these are your certified project managers. And so that allows a little bit of prestige for something like that. So anyway, I know I spent some time on this, but this is the bread and butter of this piece. And so let me go on through this. I know I might be taking a little too much time for you. Okay, now let's go through some of the reasons behind some of this that might help you. Okay, all right. So I focused on state government a little bit, and so this might be something that that you don't care about. But when you look at some of the research behind through PMI and Standish Group, for you guys who are in government, you already know some of this stuff. But PMI, through their research, they say that when they research in the impact of project management, especially in a government setting, and they say that government entities will waste about 97 million of every $1 billion invested in projects. When government is committed to project management, program management leading, they consistently have better outcomes. And what they're saying is that when we just run a project just any old willy-nilly way, we waste money. But when we get over here and we run a project, we're using project management principles and processes, and we learn how to do this, we save money. And that's going to help us in state government, federal government. That's going to help us in a regular company to be able to do this as well in these areas also. Also, the Standish Group, which is quoted so many times in state government, and many of you who are in state government in this class know what I'm talking about. They found that 47% of the projects come in on time, 54% come in on budget, and only 60% ever meet their goals, though. Some will say these numbers aren't correct, but Standish Group stated in 2014 report that only 16.2% of the IT projects come in on time and on budget. With these kind of numbers, you can see why state government, you can see why all government is scared to death of project management, and you can see why legislatures are stepping in and mandating project management to be run. Even the state of Kansas, the contract with the state of Kansas with project management being taught to people is being controlled by the legislature. The legislature is stating that IT projects over $250,000 is being run with project management. That is not a suggestion. That is the legislature that's mandating that so that they can protect the citizens' money. And that is good stewardship. So when you're looking at these kind of things, people are tired of losing tax dollars. And so what's happening is people are taking greater stands with these type of things. Now, how does this flesh out with the people that are coming to work with us? Baby boomers are leaving the system and are gone out of the system. Most of you have seen this. Well, what about Gen X and millennials that are in the system right now? Well, certifications are a huge piece of where they are. Now, baby boomers didn't care as much about the certifications. And I'm not saying, when I make that broad statement, I'm saying in general they didn't. Certifications are considered one of the biggest ways to find the right people for the right job. 91% of the hiring managers today believe that IT certifications are valuable in validating expertise. And according to CompT's employers' perception of IT training and certification study, this is one of the biggest things. Almost any survey you look at, especially with millennials, certifications is one of the things that millennials are going after. All different types of certifications to better themselves. Now, here's an overview of the state certification program that we just talked about. And let's make sure that we have this, because this is going to feed into how you motivate and be able to keep some of your staff. I want to show you that part, okay? All right, so you've got to have content. Let me get you an arrow up here where you can see what I'm doing here, okay? All right, so let's start here. You got to have content. And then you go to application. You want them to be able to apply this. To send them the 3 weeks of training that they do not apply and they don't have the ability to apply in their government setting, or even if you're a secular company watching the video here or watching the webinar, look, you know what? You want them to apply it too. Also, you want them to be able to pass the test. You're wanting them to be able to understand what's happening and to be able to make it through everything, every piece of that particular material, and to be able to understand how to be able to present themselves as a good project manager and everything else. And of course, you're going to have a duration of this thing. So when you're looking at presentation and duration, then who's going to be teaching them and how long is that going to be? So you're wanting long enough to be able to impact behavior, but not so long that it's going to be one of those deals where it's like, gosh, just how much longer do we have to go through this stuff? So you're wanting to balance the two of those. And presentation is going to be a piece of that, of how you're going to train them, what kind of training you get. And the other side is going to be how long it's going to be. Too short, it's not going to change behavior. Too long, it's going to kill everybody in productivity. So you've got to balance that. Okay, so let's go a little further here and pull it together with you from a motivational standpoint. So here's your benefits from a certification program. First off, you're going to have trained employees and you'll start saving money. You say, how can you prove that? Your people are going to run more efficient. Now, you've got to be able to create the culture to where they're making better decisions and management supporting it. As you start looking at your certification program, you have trained people in project management. Project management overall saves money because you're not making goofy decisions. We're doing the research and then making the decision rather than making a decision and then getting in the middle of it and realizing we should have done the research. Increased communication. People pick up on early warning signs. All the training for these certification programs inundate your people in 3 weeks of nothing but tons of warning signs. So what they normally find out in when they're 5 weeks down into a problem, they find out in 2 or 3 days. When they start seeing this stuff, they start thinking, okay, these are warning signs. We've talked about them in class. We did an activity on this. Stronger metrics. They understand what metrics are. They understand what they're looking for. Transferable processes. They're looking for steps of action, how to come out of this stuff. And then they're looking for state best practices. And if your state or your organization, if you have that, don't have best practices, these are key things that ought to be worked on. When states have best practices that are continuing to be updated, this is huge for being able, if you're using traditional project management, to be able to evolve to something that's going to be outstanding for your organization. If you're an agile organization, that's fine. But the point is that you're still wanting to evolve to where you've got best practices, even in the agile methodologies of those things that's going to work for you, and those agile processes that's going to work for you with consistency, no matter what you're going to be doing. All right, so let's talk very quickly about the length of the certification program. It's going to hinge on 3 things, and we're not going to answer that for everybody. It's just going to, but these are your three-legged stool. It's going to be based on your budget, your staff availability, and what kind of new core competencies you're trying to put into the people. So if you're you're going to be looking at the core competencies, whatever you decide those are. You're going to look at staff availability. How long are you going to be able to make those staff available to be able to be part of that particular piece of training? And then what kind of budget are you willing to pay to be able to get your vendor in there? And also, what kind of budget are you willing to let go of these people to be able to be in that training? Because you got to look at both sides. And so so all 3 of those, you're weighing in on that. And so a lot of times people think, my gosh, I don't want to let my people in there for 3 weeks. However, think about it this way. What are you going to save by letting your people be in that training for 3 weeks? What kind of decisions are they going to make down the road by being in that training for 3 weeks? If they're having a lot of stupid mistakes, you're doing a lot of rework, there's a lot of things faltering, you got a lot of projects running behind, and you see all of these things dominoing, you know what? The best thing you could do might be to put them in there for 3 weeks and have them go through that type of training. Okay, so the state goals for a certification program, these would be some of those. It might not be all of these, but this would kind of get you going. To teach the processes. Now, obviously, if the processes change, then things would need to change. To create success standards, to allow front-end planning rather than in the middle and in the end. To assess the team skills. What kind of team do I have coming to the table? And with millennials, you've got good people, some of the most educated people of all generations, but many times they don't know the culture because they're new to the workplace or they haven't been to the workplace at a state government for 25 years like other people, but they're good people and they're coming there and they're excited and they're open to learning. Educate all age groups, regardless of what the age group is. We share that information with everybody. And then contract management. How are we going to run and control the vendor? A lot of times that's a piece that's missing. The vendor's calling a lot of shots that we really should be calling and dictating and working hand in hand with that vendor. Not a tug of war. Don't mistake what I'm saying, but it really should be a joint effort. And a lot of times we have so little knowledge of things, the vendor's calling more shots than what should be happening. All right, so there's 3 anchors for topics that we need to be looking at. All right, so certification supports all 3 anchors for project management topics. 1, we would be looking at state project processes. What's the processes that we have to jump through the hoops for in order for us to pay our vendors, in order for us to comply with state regulations and rules, in order for us to deal with federal issues that we have to deal with. The middle one would be PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge, if you're not familiar with that term. PMBOK guides and processes. Those have to be aligned with some of this because PMBOK is in the real world. PMBOK is going to be part of some of your vendor situations. If you're dealing with traditional projects, PMBOK is going to be a piece of it. And then the third piece, whether you like it or not, Agile is going to be part of some of your projects. Software development, product development, some of your new initiatives, and some of the newest technology that's coming out, Agile is going to be part of it. And the newer the technology, the stuff we've never done before, Agile is going to be a piece of it. If your new teams are not trained in all 3 of those, so don't just get PMBOK oriented, even though PMBOK's fine. You have to have your people trained in all 3, or once again, you're creating a new generation that's going to be anemic in processes. They're not going to know what's going on. All 3 of these have to be part of that curriculum that you're looking at with your new people in order for them to be ready. Okay, so what should they include? Okay, so here's the anchors for each course. Okay, number 1, interactive training. It's not lecture, even though there will be, it's going to be some imparting of information. It's got to be. You got to have case studies, some scenarios, activities, some group discussions. You want your people engaged in this because you're not just trying to pass it on to them, open up and let me just pour it down your throat. You're wanting them to think it through. You're wanting them to fit it in their situation. You're wanting them to raise their hand and say, hey, here's the situation I'm dealing with, and how would you deal with this? And you're wanting to be able to then turn around and spin it and put them in a situation and into a group and say, here's Hank. Here's what Hank is doing. How would you deal with this? And there's going to need to be some laughter here because you know what? That's part of the motivation. Secondly, detailed content. Content includes newest practices and theories. You're wanting to expose them to as much as possible. And then third, exposure to project management templates, sample templates given through the course. You'll find that many of these folks will go back and dig through these books when they get into some of these situations. They're not going to use it all right now, but they'll dig through it. And then give them a rigorous certification test. Once again, you're not trying to make everybody fail, but it needs to be something to where they realize I'm going to have to study for this thing. And I'm going to have to read, and I'm going to have to attend class, and I'm going to have to engage. It's not going to just be given to me because I work for the state. It has to be something that's rigorous enough that I'm going to have to take the test. So test taking strategies can be taught. They can be coached. They can review. They can be reviewed. All of those things can be done. And if you're doing it internally, you do the same stuff. You teach it internally. That's fine. But all of it can be reviewed. You don't teach the test questions. You don't show them the test questions. You don't do any of those kind of things. All that's Mickey Mouse stuff that should not be done in a certification test. That hurts this type of certification. However, but you can review topics, but not show them the review questions. That should never be done. All right, so choosing the right vendor. Here's what you would need to look for. Okay. All right. Number 1. So does the vendor, even if you don't look at us, in looking at a vendor, you still want to find someone. If you're doing project management, are they registered? Because that settles a whole lot of things for you. If you don't have a registered vendor, then that means everybody you're certifying through PMI is going to have to go someplace else to get registered. So that means that as they get registered, then what happens is they're going to then turn around and they're going to have to go someplace else to pick up their PDUs. It settles everything if who you bring on automatically registers everything. So that's not extra charges. That's just part of my contract. So what happens is that any course I bring in, it's automatically registered. I don't charge extra for it. That's just part of the contract. And I can bring on site a PMP or an Agile certification class. So I can have state of Missouri, all the people are from the state of Missouri and they're taking the PMP test. And so all of them can take the PMP certification test or the Agile test or whatever the case may be. So that just settles some of the headache for you on your side. If you don't want to do any of the certification tests like that, that's fine. You can still do all of this for an internal certification and still set your people up to where they can then do, even if they do all that on their own, that's okay. Second, is the vendor used by other reputable organizations? Look and see what their pedigree is. Look and see who else is using them. That's going to make a difference. And also, how long have they been out there? You'll find people who they're doing training and stuff, but the thing is, they haven't been doing this for a couple of years. You'll see someone say, well, we have a 100% passing rate. Well, they just started last week. 2 people took the test. You're not looking at somebody who's running hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people through every year. You're not look and see what their guarantee is. If they're doing a PMP boot camp, what's their guarantee? If there's no guarantee, what kind of guarantee do they have? So you take the test. What's the guarantee? We'll pay for their second and their third test if they take the test and they fail. What about someone else? What do they do? And so the guarantee is huge a lot of times. So how long has the vendor been in business? Does the trainers have project management experience? Also, how are the class activities structured? We've talked about that a little bit already. Does the vendor demonstrate quality in their teaching? And so what do they bring to the table as far as some of the dynamics there? All right, so very quickly, I know I'm taking just a touch too much time here. So let's look here. Oh, I messed up on you here. All right, so let me go past this one. This one messes up. I forgot this is what happens when we do the webinar for this. So let me talk about it from this angle. This one's it's not going to show it to you the way this is because this has got pop-ups. All right, what this was supposed to demonstrate for you that's not going to demonstrate is you take a worker, and this was supposed to focus on millennials, is that millennials, one of the downsides of millennials is that they're supposed to change jobs so many times in the next several years. And so people are fearful of millennials coming, picking up a credential, and then leaving. That's what many states are verbalizing right now. One of the things that I think will help you and that we're seeing help other organizations, even non-state organizations, is millennials are interested in training, they're interested in certifications, and they will stay longer, but there's certain characteristics that will help, okay? So let me describe what's here. Millennials will come for training, and they will come to help to stay and if they can pick up their certification. But here's one of the things that will help, okay? Bring them in, get them trained internally, bring them in, help them get their certifications if you can. PMP, Agile, you keep them by providing internal training that gives them PDUs. All of that sets the tone for them to be able to keep that certification. One of the things that we're seeing is millennials are staying a long period of time if they feel that they're able to provide something of value to the client, if they feel like they're able to keep their certifications up and get their certifications. If they're brought in and their boss or their employer is not providing anything toward their training, toward their education, toward their certifications, then they will look someplace else and they'll do it very quickly. But those employers that are providing something toward their certification, millennials will stay, and they will stay for a lot of years. But it's got to be that kind of feeling there. Now, not every state can do that, and not every employer has that ability to be able to contribute to those type of things. But that's what I was going to teach you here with this next to last slide. That was the way to be able to keep the millennials. And I know state government struggles with millennials, and the fear of getting them certified with a PMP and an Agile and some of these other things is that they're going to get certified and move on. Well, the truth of the matter is, with millennials, if we don't do something different than what we were doing, they're going to come get the experience and move on anyway. So the best way for us to be able to keep them is to be able to help them get certified, help keep them certified, and we'll probably keep them longer, if not as long anyway. And so we might as well do something that's going to contribute to them and possibly hang on to them longer anyway, rather than the thought of, well, we're not going to help them do anything, and they're probably going to leave sooner with that mindset than the other. So anyway, anyway, that's what I was trying desperately to teach you here with this piece here. And so let me show you the last piece here. So for those of you who didn't read the report, it's posted on LinkedIn. You can find a copy of it also on the Facebook site for the Mathis group. But it's 48-page report, Secrets to Creating and Maintaining a State Certification Program Project Management. As of the webinar today, there was 600, right at 600 people who read it just in the last week. So you've got an opportunity. If you didn't read it, you can download it from LinkedIn, from my account on LinkedIn, which is here, or Facebook, and you're welcome to get it. Also, if you need any information or you would like to ask any questions or anything, feel free to give me a call at the 800 number or send an email. I'd be glad to talk with you. Let me thank you so much. I'm sorry I went a few minutes over. I told you 30. It's about 37 minutes. Sorry. I hope this was educational for you. I hope it helped kind of pull some of it together. If I can help you in any way to be able to create a certification program for your company or for your state organization, I'd love to do it. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope this was beneficial. Have a great day. Bye now.